I guess if you asked anyone who knew me back then, they'd probably say I just couldn't stick to anything. And they'd be right. I tried. I really did. First it was art school. Dropped out after a year. Then I worked at a bike shop, thought maybe that was it. Then a landscaping gig, some food delivery apps, even tried selling insurance for 6 months. Nothing stuck. Nothing felt like mine. Every time I thought I found my place, it turned out to be a waiting room for the next letdown. I was 33 and already felt worn out. Still renting the same one-bedroom apartment I'd moved into right after high school. My fridge made that wheezing noise, the kind you stop noticing after a while, and the walls were still that pale yellow from when the place was built in the 80s. Anyway, that day, it was a Tuesday, middle of June. It started raining around 4. One of those heavy, slow-moving rains that doesn't let up. I didn't have work that day. At the time, I was doing gig stuff, mostly driving. But it wasn't worth getting soaked for $20. So I made some coffee, grabbed a folding chair, and sat under the little awning over my back door. I liked it out there when it rained. Something about the way the water hit the pavement, the roof gutters gurgling. It quieted my brain a little. That's when I saw her. Across the street, standing at the bus stop, was this girl. Young, maybe mid-20s. She had no umbrella, no coat, just this oversized hoodie that was already soaked through. Her hair was stuck to her face. I figured she'd missed the last bus, or maybe didn't know it wasn't coming. Then a car flew by and hit the biggest puddle on the road. It drenched her completely, like from head to toe. I saw her flinch and try to brush the water off her arms. No one else was around. No other cars, no people walking. Just me watching from across the street like some creep. But I wasn't thinking anything creepy. I just looked at her and thought, God, she must feel completely invisible. I sat there for maybe 5 minutes, debating with myself. I didn't know her. She might think I'm a psycho. But then I thought, hell, if that was my little sister or someone I cared about, I'd want somebody to do something. So I grabbed an umbrella and walked across the street. Hey, I said, trying not to startle her. Buses are done for the day. They won't be back till morning. She looked up, blinking rain out of her eyes. She didn't say anything. My place is right there, I said, pointing back. You can come in, dry off, warm up. I'll make tea or something. Not trying to be weird. Just, you look miserable. She stared at me for a few seconds, and I figured she was going to say no, or curse me out. But instead, she just said, okay, that's it. Just okay. Like it was the most normal thing in the world. And just like that, she followed me back to my place. She didn't ask if I was a serial killer. I didn't ask why she was out in the rain. It was just two people who, for whatever reason, needed something right then and didn't know it until it happened. I gave her a towel and a hoodie that used to belong to my cousin who stayed with me for a while and never picked his stuff up. I made tea. We sat at my little kitchen table, steam rising from the mugs, and said nothing for a while. I didn't know her name yet, didn't know anything, but something in that moment shifted. I felt it, like the air between us had a hum in it. And I swear, for the first time in years, I didn't feel lost. Not exactly found either, but not lost. That was the start. She told me her name was Lacey, said it while holding the tea mug with both hands, like she needed the warmth more than the caffeine. Her fingers were trembling a little, and her voice was quiet, kind of cautious. She didn't ask my name right away. She just said, thanks for not being a creep. Then she gave me a half smile. First one I'd seen on her face. I said, you're welcome, and told her my name was Mike. We didn't dive into life stories or anything. It was mostly small stuff at first. She told me she was new to town, just moved 2 weeks ago. Roommates hadn't been home that day, and she'd gone out to clear her head. No real destination. Just ended up at the bus stop because she didn't know where else to go. I told her I'd lived in this neighborhood my whole life, though that made it sound more intentional than it was. Truth is, I just never figured out where else to go either. She asked what I did. I told her a little of everything, and she laughed. Not like it was funny, but like she understood. That laugh, it got to me. Not because it was cute or flirty or anything like that. It just felt honest. Like she wasn't pretending to have it all together, and maybe she didn't expect me to pretend either. We ended up talking for almost 2 hours. About dumb stuff, favorite old movies, worst jobs we ever had. She once worked at one of those seasonal Halloween stores. Said it was the most depressing thing in the world after November 1st. I told her about the time I got fired from a call center because I refused to upsell a guy who said he was behind on rent. At some point, the rain let up. I didn't even notice until she glanced toward the window and said, "I should probably head back." I wanted to say no. I wanted to say stay. But I didn't. I just said, "I can walk you if you want." She hesitated for a second, then nodded. So we walked. Just a few blocks. She lived in a shared house with 3 other people. Said she barely knew them. I asked if she liked living there. She said, "It's a roof." When we got to the porch, she turned to me and said, "Thanks for the tea, and the dry hoodie, and not being an asshole." I smiled and said, "Anytime." Then she asked, "Do you want my number?" I said sure, trying not to sound too eager. She typed it into my phone herself. Put her name as Lacey, Rain Girl, then handed it back with a small shrug. "Maybe next time I'll bring the tea," she said. And then she was gone. Inside. Door closed. I stood there for a few seconds, then turned and walked home. That night I didn't sleep much. Not because I was excited or anything big like that. Just because something had shifted. Not just in the day but in me. I didn't know what it meant yet. I just knew something was different. And the weirdest part? For once, the quiet didn't feel empty. I didn't text her the next day. Or the one after that. It wasn't some move like I was playing it cool. I just didn't want to mess it up. That's how it usually went for me. Meet someone, it goes okay, I overthink it. Then either I say something dumb or they ghost me before it even starts. So I waited. On the 3rd day, I was sitting on the same back step, another mug of coffee in my hand, when I got a text. "Lacey, Rain Girl, still got that tea?" I stared at it for a few seconds. Just one line, no emojis, no punctuation. Just a little check-in. I replied, "Always." She showed up an hour later. No rain this time. Just a light breeze and the smell of fresh-cut grass from the neighbor's yard. She wore that same hoodie I gave her. I didn't mention it, but it meant something. At least to me. We sat inside. Tea again. Some cheap cookies I found in the back of the pantry. Talked about nothing and everything. This time we both asked a little more. She told me she was 26, from upstate New York, came to town for a job that fell through a week after she arrived. She was looking for something else but hadn't found it yet. I told her I was 33, had tried more jobs than I could remember, and still didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. She laughed at that. Then she got quiet for a second and said, "You ever feel like everyone else got the manual and you didn't?" I nodded. We didn't say much after that. Just sat there, comfortable, like that silence you get with people you've known a long time, except we hadn't. She left around dusk, said, "See you," like it was already a done deal. And just like that, it became a regular thing. She'd come by maybe twice a week. Sometimes we'd walk to the corner store. Sometimes we'd just watch whatever was on. It wasn't dating, not really. But it wasn't nothing. Then, one night, maybe 3 weeks into this whole rhythm, I came home from a gig delivery shift. It was late, around 11. I was tired, sweaty, and halfway through kicking off my shoes when there was a knock at the door. It was her. Eyes red. Hoodie zipped all the way up. Hair messy like she hadn't touched it all day. She just said, "Can I stay here tonight?" I didn't ask questions. I just let her in. She took the couch. I offered her the bed, but she shook her head. I brought her a blanket and sat on the floor next to her while she curled up. She didn't say what was wrong. I didn't push. She fell asleep fast, like she hadn't in days. I stayed up, just listening to her breathe. At some point around 3 a.m., I leaned my head back against the couch and closed my eyes. And then she whispered, "I didn't know where else to go." I said, "This is a good place to go." She didn't say anything else. The next morning I made eggs and toast. She ate every bite. Still didn't tell me what had happened. But I didn't need her to. Before she left, she stood by the door for a second, looking unsure. Then she hugged me. Not quick. Not romantic. Just full body, no words kind of hug. And right then, right in that moment, I knew everything in my life had just changed. Not dramatically, not loudly, just shifted. The kind of shift you don't feel until later, when you look back and realize everything from that point was different. That was the hook. The one that sets everything else in motion. After that night, something changed between us. She didn't move in, not officially, but she started leaving things. A book on the counter, a charger in the wall, a pack of gum on the nightstand that she swore wasn't hers even though I don't chew gum. We didn't talk about what it was. There wasn't some big conversation about us. But she came over more. Stayed longer. Helped me clean the kitchen once without asking, and that meant more to me than I knew how to say. She never explained that night she showed up crying. And I never asked. Some people want to talk it all out. She wasn't one of them. She just needed a place to land. And I guess I needed someone to land here. One night, she asked if I'd ever been in love. I thought about it. Really thought. I'd dated people. I'd said the words before. But I'd never felt the thing, the kind that sits in your chest like a quiet weight, not heavy, just permanent. I said no. Not really. She nodded like she already knew the answer. Then she said I thought I had. But looking back, I think I was just afraid of being alone. I said I'm still afraid of that. She looked at me and said me too. We sat on the floor that night, playing some stupid game on our phones and laughing at nothing. I remember thinking, this is the first time in years I don't feel like I'm wasting my life. That feeling didn't last forever. Nothing does. But it stayed long enough to change something in me. She started opening up slowly like pieces of a puzzle scattered on the floor. Her dad had left when she was little. Her mom worked 2 jobs. She'd moved around a lot. Never finished college. Said she used to be a really good runner, track team, awards, all that. Then she blew out her knee at 19 and never really got back to who she was before. I told her about the jobs. The way I kept thinking the next one would be it. That I'd find my thing. That I'd finally become someone worth remembering. But every time it ended the same: bored, tired, quitting before they could fire me. I told her how I'd always felt like a background character in my own life. She said, maybe that's just because you never had a story worth starring in. I asked if this was one. She looked at me and said, I think so. After that, things got easier. But also harder. Because once you start caring, you start fearing. Fear of screwing it up. Of it not lasting. Of saying the wrong thing and watching it all disappear. She got a job at a coffee shop. Said it was nothing fancy, but it paid rent and gave her something to do. She still came over most nights. Sometimes stayed. Sometimes left at 2 a.m. when the air got too quiet. One night, I came home and found her asleep on the couch, my hoodie tucked around her like a blanket. The TV was on, playing some old sitcom rerun. I just stood there and watched her breathe for a few seconds. And I thought this wasn't part of any plan. But maybe the plan was the problem all along. It didn't turn into some fairy tale. That's not what this is. We still had bad days. Days she didn't text back. Days I felt like maybe I was still just the guy who didn't know what he was doing. But between all that, we had good ones. And that mattered more than I thought it would. We started doing these little routines without realizing it. Saturday mornings she'd bring bagels from the corner place and we'd eat on the stoop even when it was cold. Sunday nights we'd rewatch dumb old movies and argue about which ones held up. She had this thing where she'd fall asleep with her legs stretched across the whole couch and I'd sit on the floor just to have room. None of it was big, but it felt like living. One day she said, "You're different now." I asked, "From when?" "From before. When I met you. You don't look as lost." I didn't know what to say, but I thought about that a lot after. Maybe I was changing. Not into someone else, but into someone more myself. She helped with that. Just by being around. Just by showing up. One night, she stayed over and didn't leave the next morning. Called in sick. Said she wanted a day off from the world. So we stayed in bed until noon, ordered greasy food, and played music too loud. At one point, she danced barefoot in the kitchen and sang into a spoon like it was a microphone. She looked ridiculous. She looked beautiful. She looked like the future. That scared the hell out of me. Because I'd never thought that far ahead before. I'd never imagined anything long-term, never had a reason to. But now I was picturing weekends like this on purpose. Picturing holidays. Picturing what it'd be like to wake up to her every day. And I was terrified that I'd lose it. Because part of me still thought I didn't deserve this. That I hadn't earned it. That someday she'd wake up and see I was just a guy with too many old job applications and not enough ambition. But then she'd look at me and say something dumb like, "You make good toast," and I'd forget all that for a while. That was the magic of her. She made things feel simple even when they weren't. One night I asked, "Why'd you say yes?" "That first day. When I offered you tea." She shrugged. "You looked safe." I laughed. "I'm not sure that's a compliment." She smiled. "It is." Then she added, "Also, I didn't want to be alone that night. And I thought, maybe you didn't either." She was right. I didn't want to be alone. Not then. Not anymore. And maybe that's what love looks like when you're not 20 and naive. It's not roses and grand gestures. It's showing up. It's making tea. It's sitting quietly while someone figures themselves out. It's saying you can stay and meaning it. That's where we were. Not perfect, but something. We never moved in together, not in the official way. She still had her room in the shared house and I still had my apartment. But her toothbrush lived in my bathroom. Her shoes were by the door. And half the time her coat was hanging off the back of my kitchen chair. That was enough. We didn't talk about the future much. No 5-year plans, no talk of kids or mortgages. But we started doing things that hinted at a kind of forward motion. One Sunday we drove out of town to see a used bookshelf she found online. It didn't fit in my car and we had to strap it to the roof with twine and blind hope. On the way back it started raining and the whole car smelled like wetwood. We laughed the entire drive. We put the shelf in my place. Filled it with her books. Then mine. It didn't feel like mine anymore. Or hers. Just ours without saying the word. There was this one evening, late summer, where we were just sitting outside eating Chinese takeout on the steps. She leaned her head on my shoulder and said, "I didn't think I'd get to have this." I asked, "Have what?" "This. Just this. A quiet life that doesn't feel like settling." I didn't answer. Just kissed the top of her head and kept eating. Because that was it. She'd put it into words I didn't have. A quiet life that didn't feel like settling. We weren't chasing anything big. Just each other. Just the moment. And that was enough. There were still tough days. She'd come home from a shift angry about something dumb a customer said. I'd have a week where the apps dried up and the money felt thin. But we shared the weight of it. I didn't carry it alone anymore. She got a second job at a bookstore. Said it made her happier than she'd expected. I picked up steadier delivery routes. Started budgeting better. Even got a little savings account going. Nothing huge. Just enough to feel like we weren't always one flat tire away from disaster. One night I asked her if she wanted to stay the whole weekend. She said I was planning on it. And that became the new thing. We stopped keeping track of who stayed where. Some days I'd find her there before I even got home, cooking pasta like it was her kitchen. Other days we'd crash at her place, even if it meant dealing with her roommate's awful choice in music. There was no talk of leaving. No talk of forever. But she stayed. And staying felt like choosing. Not just me. But this life. This version of it. This slower, softer, more human version. It wasn't what I'd imagined when I was younger. But maybe that's the point. You don't find what you thought you wanted. You find what fits when you've stopped pretending you know anything at all. It's been almost 3 years since that rainy day. The bus stop's still there, though I don't look at it the same way. Every time I pass it, I think of her standing there, soaked, waiting for something that wasn't coming. And me, just a guy with an umbrella and no real direction. Now, we're still here. Still us. We never got married. Didn't see the point. But she lives here full-time now. We gave up the old apartment and moved into a little duplex near the edge of town. Not fancy, but it's got a yard, a real kitchen, and a window that catches the sun just right in the morning. She's still working at the bookstore. I finally got on full-time with a delivery outfit. Benefits, regular hours. Not glamorous, but stable. I've got a little workshop in the garage now. Started building things with scrap wood shelves, benches, small stuff. Turns out I like working with my hands. She says it makes me calmer. Some weekends we go nowhere. Just sit in the yard, drink coffee, and watch the neighbor's dog bark at birds. Sometimes we talk about getting a dog. Sometimes we talk about nothing. She still dances in the kitchen when she thinks I'm not looking. And I still watch. A few months ago, I found her standing in the living room holding that same hoodie I gave her that first night. It's got a hole in the sleeve now. She asked if she should toss it. I said no. She folded it and put it back in the closet. We don't talk much about how we met to other people. Not because we're ashamed or hiding anything. Just because it's ours. A little strange. A little too simple to sound like much when you say it out loud. But to me, it was everything. Sometimes I still get that restless feeling. Like I'm supposed to be doing more. Like I'm behind on some invisible checklist everyone else got. But then she'll come sit beside me or we'll make dinner together. Or she'll read out loud from whatever weird novel she's into. And the feeling fades. Because this is it. This is the story now. Not the one I thought I was writing. but the one that ended up saving me anyway. And yeah, maybe I never found my place in the world, but I found a person, and maybe that's the same thing.